The scene opens at a busy regional airport, buzzing with the usual chaos of travelers rushing to catch their flights. Among the crowd is Matthew Harper, a seasoned commercial airline pilot in his late 40s. With his neatly pressed uniform and confident stride, he stands out as someone who commands respect. Today, however, Matthew isn't flying. He's waiting for his next assignment at the gate, scrolling through emails on his phone while sipping coffee. Nearby, a young boy sits quietly on a bench, seemingly lost in his own world. His name is Elijah Johnson, and he's about 10 years old. He has a toy airplane clutched in one hand and a notebook open on his lap. The pages are filled with sketches of planes, some realistic, others wildly imaginative. Elijah hums softly to himself, completely absorbed in his creativity. To anyone passing by, he looks like an ordinary kid with a fascination for aviation. Matthew glances up from his phone and notices Elijah. At first, he feels a pang of nostalgia. He remembers being that age, dreaming of flying planes and exploring the skies. But something about the boy catches his attention. Elijah keeps looking toward the cockpit door of a nearby plane, his eyes wide with curiosity. Matthew watches him for a moment, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping into his mind. Why is he so interested in the cockpit? Matthew mutters under his breath. He tells himself it's probably harmless, just a kid fascinated by airplanes. But the thought lingers. What if it's not? The news is full of stories about security threats, and airports are no place for carelessness. Matthew's training kicks in, amplifying his doubts. He starts piecing together assumptions. The boy is alone. He's staring at restricted areas, and he seems unusually focused for someone so young. As minutes pass, Matthew's unease grows stronger. He convinces himself that Elijah might be up to something suspicious. Maybe he's casing the area, gathering information. Or worse, what if he's planning something dangerous? Matthew knows these thoughts might sound extreme, but he can't ignore them. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry, right? Finally, unable to shake off his suspicions, Matthew makes a decision. He walks over to the nearest security checkpoint and reports what he describes as odd behavior from the boy. The security personnel listen intently, nodding as Matthew explains the situation. They assure him they'll look into it immediately. As they head toward Elijah, Matthew watches from a distance, convinced he's done the right thing. But deep down, a small voice whispers doubt. Was he too quick to judge? Could there be another explanation? For now, though, Matthew pushes those thoughts aside. He tells himself he was just doing his duty, protecting everyone around him. Little does he know, this decision will lead to consequences far beyond anything he could have imagined, and change the course of his life forever. Months have passed since that fateful day at the airport, and the bond between Matthew and Elijah has grown into something neither of them could have imagined. What started as hesitant meetings filled with awkward silences has transformed into a mentorship rooted in mutual respect and shared passion. Every weekend, they meet to explore the world of aviation together, visiting hangars, attending flight simulations, and even taking short trips to local airstrips where Elijah gets to see planes up close. For Elijah, these moments are like stepping into a dream. For Matthew, they're a chance to rewrite his story. One sunny Saturday morning, Matthew takes Elijah to a small regional airfield where a friend of his owns a private plane. The owner agrees to let Elijah sit in the cockpit under supervision, a moment the boy has been eagerly anticipating for weeks. As Elijah climbs into the pilot's seat, his eyes light up with wonder. He runs his fingers over the controls, asking endless questions about how each button and lever works. Matthew kneels beside him, patiently explaining everything in detail, his voice brimming with pride. "You know," Matthew says with a smile, "when I was your age, I used to sketch planes just like you do. My mom still has some of those drawings somewhere." Elijah grins, flipping open his notebook to show Matthew his latest design, a futuristic aircraft with wings shaped like feathers. "Do you think something like this could really fly someday?" he asks, his excitement palpable. "Absolutely," Matthew replies without hesitation. "If anyone can make it happen, it's you." Watching from a distance, Nicole observes the scene with a mixture of emotions. She feels a deep sense of gratitude, not just because Matthew has stepped up, but because her son is thriving under his guidance. The fear and hurt Elijah felt that day at the airport haven't disappeared entirely, but they've been replaced by something far stronger: hope. Hope that people can change, that dreams are worth pursuing, and that even mistakes can lead to growth. Later that afternoon, the three of them stand together on the tarmac as a plane taxis down the runway, its engines roaring to life. Elijah tilts his head back, watching in awe as the aircraft lifts off into the sky. "I'm going to fly one of those someday," he declares confidently, clutching his notebook tightly. "I believe you will," Nicole says, placing a hand on his shoulder. Turning to Matthew, she adds, "Thank you for believing in him too." Matthew nods, feeling a lump rise in his throat. He knows he'll never fully erase the pain he caused, but moments like this remind him why he's working so hard to be better. Over time, he's learned to confront his biases, challenge his assumptions, and truly listen to others. And while the journey hasn't been easy, it's taught him that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. As the sun sets behind them, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the trio shares a quiet moment of connection. The noise of the airfield fades into the background, leaving only the hum of possibility. For Elijah, it's a reminder that his dreams are valid and achievable. For Nicole, it's proof that forgiveness and progress go hand in hand. And for Matthew, it's a symbol of renewal, a second chance not just to inspire a child, but to become someone worthy of trust. The story closes with a final image, the three of them standing side by side, gazing upward as another plane takes flight. It's more than just an ordinary moment. It's a testament to the power of understanding, resilience, and human connection. In the vast expanse of the sky above, anything seems possible. As Matthew steps back from the security checkpoint, he watches as two uniformed officers approach Elijah. The boy is still sitting on the bench, completely unaware of the storm about to unfold. His toy airplane rests beside him, and his notebook lies open on his lap, filled with sketches of planes in various shapes and sizes. He looks like any other child lost in their own little world, until the officers stop in front of him. "Hey there, buddy," one of the officers says, trying to sound friendly but firm. "What are you doing here all by yourself?" Elijah looks up, startled. For a moment, he seems confused, unsure why these strangers are talking to him. I'm waiting for my mom," he stammers, clutching his notebook tighter. "She went to grab something to eat." The officer nods but doesn't soften his tone. "Do you mind telling us why you were looking at that plane over there?" He points toward the cockpit door that Matthew had noticed earlier. Elijah follows the gesture and then looks back at the officer, his brow furrowing. "I wasn't doing anything wrong," he says softly. "I just really like airplanes. See," he holds up his notebook, showing off his drawings. "I want to be a pilot someday." Despite Elijah's innocent explanation, the officers remain cautious. They ask more questions, pressing him about where he lives, who his parents are, and whether he has any identification. Each question makes Elijah more nervous, his voice trembling as he tries to answer. Passers-by begin to notice the scene unfolding, some pausing to watch while others hurry past, pretending not to see. Meanwhile, Matthew stands nearby, feeling a mix of relief and unease. On one hand, he's glad he reported what he thought was suspicious behavior. But now, seeing how scared Elijah looks, doubt starts creeping into his mind. Is this really necessary? Could he have misjudged the situation? Before he can dwell on it further, another figure enters the scene, a woman rushing toward them with a determined expression. It's Dr. Nicole Johnson, Elijah's mother. She's sharply dressed in a tailored blazer and heels, her presence commanding immediate attention. Her eyes scan the group, taking in the sight of her son surrounded by security personnel. "What's going on here?" she demands, her voice firm but controlled. "Why are you questioning my son?" One of the officers explains that someone reported Elijah for acting suspiciously near the restricted area. Nicole's gaze shifts to Matthew, who suddenly feels like he's been caught in a spotlight. She recognizes him instantly, the man in the pilot's uniform standing awkwardly off to the side. Without hesitation, she strides over to him. "This was your doing?" she asks, her tone sharp enough to cut through steel. Matthew fumbles for words, his confidence crumbling under her piercing stare. I didn't mean anything bad," he stammers. "I just saw him looking at the cockpit and thought." "You thought what?" Nicole interrupts, raising an eyebrow. "That a black boy sketching planes must be up to no good. Did it ever occur toward you that he might actually love aviation?" Matthew opens his mouth to respond but finds himself speechless. The weight of his actions hits him like a ton of bricks. Around them, the crowd grows larger, murmuring amongst themselves as they witness the confrontation. Some people nod in agreement with Nicole, while others exchange skeptical glances, wondering if Matthew truly overreacted or if caution was justified. For Elijah, the moment is overwhelming. He clutches his notebook tightly, watching his mother defend him with quiet admiration. Despite the tension, he feels a flicker of pride knowing how much she believes in him and how fiercely she protects him. But the ordeal isn't over yet. As Nicole turns back to the officers to demand answers, Matthew realizes that his rash decision has set off a chain reaction, one that will force him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the world around him. The tension in the terminal is palpable as Nicole Johnson steps forward, her presence commanding attention. Her sharp blazer and confident posture make it clear she's not someone to be trifled with. The officers, who had been questioning Elijah moments ago, now shift uncomfortably under her intense gaze. Even Matthew, standing a few feet away, feels an invisible weight pressing down on him. He knows he's about to face the consequences of his actions, and something tells him this isn't going to end quietly. Nicole wastes no time getting to the heart of the matter. "Who reported my son?" she asks again, her voice steady but laced with authority. One of the officers hesitates before nodding subtly toward Matthew. Nicole turns her piercing eyes back to him, and for a moment, there's complete silence. It's as if the entire terminal has frozen, waiting to see what will happen next. Matthew instinctively takes a step back, his hands twitching nervously at his sides. "Ma'am," he begins, his voice shaky. "I didn't mean." "You didn't mean what?" Nicole cuts him off, her tone cutting through his stuttered words like a knife. "You didn't mean to stereotype a 10-year-old boy because of the color of his skin. You didn't mean to assume he was dangerous just because he likes airplanes. Or maybe you didn't mean to waste everyone's time here today." Her words hang in the air, sharp and unyielding. Matthew feels his face flush with embarrassment as whispers ripple through the growing crowd around them. Some people glance at Nicole with admiration, while others shoot disapproving looks at Matthew. A few even pull out their phones, capturing the scene as it unfolds. The pressure mounts, and Matthew struggles to find the right thing to say. Before he can respond, Nicole takes a deep breath and softens her tone slightly, but only slightly. "Do you have any idea how much damage assumptions like yours cause?" she continues, her voice carrying both anger and sadness. "People look at my son and see potential trouble before they see a child with dreams. And when someone in your position reinforces those biases, it sends a message, not just to him, but to everyone watching." Matthew swallows hard, feeling the full weight of her words. He glances at Elijah, who stands quietly beside his mother, clutching his notebook tightly. The boy's wide eyes reflect confusion and hurt, emotions that Matthew knows he played a part in causing. Guilt washes over him, heavy and suffocating. For years, he's prided himself on being a professional, someone who follows protocol and prioritizes safety. But now, faced with the human impact of his decision, He realizes how wrong he was. As the confrontation continues, Nicole reveals a detail that shocks everyone, including Matthew. "By the way," she says, her voice calm but deliberate, "I'm Dr. Nicole Johnson. I work for the FAA." The room falls silent as the significance of her statement sinks in. Murmurs spread through the crowd as people piece together who she is. The Federal Aviation Administration administrator, one of the most powerful figures in aviation. Suddenly, Matthew feels even smaller than before. The officers exchange nervous glances, clearly realizing they've mishandled the situation. One of them quickly assures Nicole that everything has been sorted out and apologizes profusely. But Nicole doesn't let them, or Matthew, off the hook so easily. She addresses the crowd directly, using the moment to highlight a larger issue. "This isn't just about my son," she says, her voice rising above the murmurs. "It's about every child who's judged before they're understood. Every person who's treated differently because of how they look or where they come from. We need to do better, not just in airports, but everywhere." Her words resonate deeply, earning nods of agreement from many in the crowd. For Matthew, however, they strike a personal chord. As Nicole turns her focus back to him, he braces himself for whatever comes next. But instead of lashing out further, she studies him carefully, as if trying to decide whether he's worth another chance. In that moment, Matthew knows his life and his career are about to change forever. The confrontation between Nicole and Matthew continues, drawing more attention from the crowd. Passengers pause mid-stride, some leaning against pillars or standing near gates to watch the scene unfold. Whispers ripple through the terminal, with snippets of conversation floating in the air. "Did you hear what happened? Is that really the FAA administrator? Poor kid." The atmosphere is charged, a mix of curiosity and tension that seems to grow thicker by the second. Nicole steps closer to Matthew, her expression unreadable but undeniably intense. "Let me ask you something," she says, her voice low but carrying enough authority to silence the murmurs around them. "When you saw my son sitting there, sketching planes, did it ever occur to you that he might just be passionate about aviation? That maybe he wasn't casing the place or plotting something dangerous, but dreaming?" Matthew opens his mouth to respond, but no words come out. He feels exposed, as if every eye in the room is dissecting his actions, and rightly so. His mind races, searching for an explanation that doesn't sound hollow or defensive. Finally, he manages to choke out, I thought I was being cautious. You can't blame me for wanting to keep people safe." Nicole raises an eyebrow, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Cautious," she repeats, letting the word hang in the air. "Or prejudiced. Because let's be honest, that's what this boils down to. If Elijah were a white boy sitting there with the same notebook and toy plane, would you have called security? Would you have assumed the worst?" Her question hits like a punch to the gut. Matthew feels the blood drain from his face as he realizes she's right. Deep down, he knows his reaction would have been different if Elijah had looked different. It's a truth he's tried to ignore for years, buried beneath layers of excuses and rationalizations. But now, standing under Nicole's unyielding gaze, he can't hide anymore. "I'm sorry," Matthew blurts out, his voice cracking slightly. "I truly am. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I swear. I made a mistake." Nicole studies him for a long moment, her expression softening ever so slightly. She glances at Elijah, who stands quietly beside her, still clutching his notebook. Her son's eyes are wide, reflecting a mix of fear and confusion, and it breaks her heart. Turning back to Matthew, she takes a deep breath before speaking again. "You're not the first person to make this kind of mistake," she says, her tone less accusatory now but still firm. "And unfortunately, you won't be the last. But here's the thing. Apologies aren't enough. Saying, 'I'm sorry' doesn't fix the damage done when someone assumes the worst about a child because of the color of their skin. It doesn't erase the fear Elijah felt today, or the message it sends to him and others like him." Matthew nods slowly, his shoulders slumping under the weight of her words. He wants to argue, to defend himself, but he knows she's right. Instead, he lowers his head, unable to meet her gaze. For the first time in years, he feels truly humbled and deeply ashamed. Around them, the crowd begins to disperse, though murmurs linger in the air. Some people nod approvingly at Nicole's handling of the situation, while others glance at Matthew with pity or disdain. A few approach Nicole to offer support, praising her poise and courage. One elderly woman even pats Elijah on the shoulder, telling him, "Don't let anyone dim your light, young man." As the commotion dies down, Nicole turned her attention back to her son. Kneeling down to his level, she gently places a hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asks softly, her voice filled with warmth and concern. Elijah nods, though tears glisten in his eyes. "I didn't do anything wrong, right, Mom?" he whispers, his voice trembling. "No, baby, you didn't," Nicole assures him, pulling him into a tight hug. "You were just being you, and that's perfect." Watching this exchange, Matthew feels a lump rise in his throat. He knows he'll carry the memory of this day with him forever. A reminder of how quickly assumptions can lead to harm, and how much work he has to do to become better. As Nicole leads Elijah away, Matthew hesitates, unsure if he should say anything else. But one thing is certain, this encounter has changed him, and it's only the beginning of what promises to be a difficult journey toward redemption. Weeks after the incident, Matthew finds himself unable to shake off the memory of Elijah and Nicole. The image of the boy's wide, frightened eyes haunts him during quiet moments, on late-night flights, in hotel rooms, even while staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He knows he can't undo what happened, but he also realizes that simply attending workshops and apologizing isn't enough. If he truly wants to make amends, he needs to take action. One evening, after a long day of training sessions and self-reflection, Matthew sits down at his kitchen table with a pen and paper. His hands tremble slightly as he begins writing a letter addressed to Dr. Nicole Johnson. At first, the words come hesitantly, each sentence feeling inadequate compared to the weight of his guilt. But as he pours his thoughts onto the page, his message becomes clearer. "Dear Dr. Johnson," he writes, "I know no words can erase the harm I caused your son that day. What I did was wrong, and I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life. But I want you to know that I'm trying to do better, to be better. I spent these past weeks learning about biases I didn't even realize I had, and it's opened my eyes in ways I never expected." He pauses, rereading the lines before continuing. "I'd like to ask for your forgiveness, not because I deserve it, but because I genuinely want to make things right. If you're willing, I'd love the opportunity to meet with you and Elijah again. Not to justify my actions, but to listen, to understand, and hopefully, to show you that I'm committed to change." When the letter is finished, Matthew seals it in an envelope and mails it the next morning. Days pass without a response, and he starts to wonder if Nicole will even bother replying. Just as he begins to lose hope, his phone buzzes with an email notification. It's from Nicole. Her reply is brief but thoughtful. "Matthew," she writes, "Elijah and I appreciate your honesty and willingness to learn. We agree that meeting could be a step forward, but only if you're sincere about making meaningful changes. Let us know when you're ready." Relieved yet nervous, Matthew arranges a time to meet them at a small cafe near the airport. On the agreed-upon day, he arrives early, fidgeting with his cup of coffee as he waits. When Nicole and Elijah walk in, he stands up immediately, unsure whether to offer a handshake or keep his distance. Nicole gives him a curt nod, while Elijah looks at him curiously, clutching his ever-present notebook. They sit down together, and after some awkward small talk, Nicole cuts to the heart of the matter. "Matthew," she says, her tone measured, "you hurt my son. That's not something we can forget easily. But if you're serious about making amends, here's what I propose. Spend time with Elijah. Help nurture his passion for aviation instead of stifling it. Show him that not everyone in this industry thinks the way you did. Matthew blinks, caught off guard by her suggestion. You'd trust me to do that? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't trust you yet, Nicole replies bluntly. But I believe people can grow. If you're willing to put in the effort, so are we. Over the following weeks, Matthew begins spending time with Elijah under Nicole's watchful eye. They start with simple activities, visiting aviation museums, watching documentaries about planes, and sketching aircraft designs together. At first, their interactions are stiff and formal, with Elijah hesitant to open up. But slowly, Matthew's genuine interest in the boy's creativity starts to break the ice. During one visit to an airshow, Elijah excitedly points out different types of planes, explaining their features with surprising detail. Matthew listens intently, asking questions and sharing stories from his own career. For the first time, Elijah smiles freely around him, a small but powerful sign of progress. Through these shared experiences, Matthew learns more than just how to connect with Elijah. He discovers the joy of mentoring someone whose enthusiasm reminds him of his younger self. In turn, Elijah begins to see Matthew not as the man who doubted him, but as someone who now supports his dreams. For Nicole, watching this transformation unfold is bittersweet. She knows forgiveness doesn't come easily, especially for Elijah. But seeing her son light up while talking about planes makes her hopeful. As they leave the airshow together, hand in hand, Nicole glances at Matthew and nods slightly, a silent acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, redemption is possible after all. As Nicole and Elijah walk away, the terminal slowly returns to its usual rhythm. Passengers resume their hurried pace toward gates, flight announcements echo over the intercom, and the hum of rolling suitcases fills the air once more. But for Matthew, the world feels different, quieter, heavier. He stands rooted in place, replaying the confrontation in his mind. The sharpness of Nicole's words lingers like a shadow, refusing to fade. News of the incident spreads quickly through the airport. Some passengers who witnessed the scene recount it to others, adding their own interpretations along the way. Did you see that? The pilot got called out big time, one man says to his companion while waiting at a nearby gate. A group of flight attendants huddles near a coffee kiosk, discussing what happened in hushed tones. Poor kid, he didn't deserve that, one of them murmurs. But can you blame the guy for being cautious? The reactions are mixed. Some defend Matthew, arguing that he was simply doing his duty by reporting suspicious behavior. Better safe than sorry, right? One traveler remarks loudly enough for those around him to hear. Others shake their heads in disapproval, criticizing his judgment. Suspicious. That boy was just drawing planes. What's so threatening about that? A woman retorts, her voice tinged with frustration. The debate grows heated, with people chiming in on both sides, turning the terminal into an impromptu forum on bias and accountability. Amid the commotion, Nicole steps onto an elevated platform near the boarding area, drawing attention from the crowd. She adjusts the microphone clipped to her blazer, a gesture born of habit, and begins to speak. Her voice is calm but carries authority, commanding silence as everyone turns to listen. I want to address something that happened here today. She starts, her eyes scanning the sea of faces before her. It's not about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's about understanding how our actions impact others. When we make assumptions based on appearances, when we let fear override reason, we hurt people. We hurt children who are simply trying to dream. Her words resonate deeply, earning nods of agreement from many in the audience. She goes on to share stories of young aspiring pilots she's met during her career, kids from all walks of life who share a love for aviation. These dreams matter, she emphasizes, her voice softening. They're the future of this industry, and if we crush those dreams with suspicion and prejudice, we're not just failing these kids, we're failing ourselves. The speech strikes a chord, sparking applause from several corners of the terminal. However, not everyone is convinced. A few travelers grumble under their breath, insisting that safety must always come first. Matthew listens intently, feeling torn between admiration for Nicole's eloquence and guilt over his role in the day's events. As the crowd disperses, he notices some people glancing at him with pity, while others avoid making eye contact altogether. Later that evening, Matthew sits alone in a quiet corner of the terminal, staring blankly at his phone. His reflection in the screen shows a man weighed down by regret. Messages from colleagues trickle in, asking if the rumors are true. One text reads, "Hey, I heard about what happened. You okay?" Another says, "Just be careful. They'll crucify you for this." Each message chips away at his already fragile resolve. Despite the support from some coworkers, Matthew knows this isn't something he can brush off easily. The image of Elijah's frightened face haunts him, the way the boy clutched his notebook, the uncertainty in his eyes. He thinks about Nicole's parting words. Apologies aren't enough. She's right, of course. An apology doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't erase the fear or the humiliation. But what else can he do? As the hours pass, Matthew finds himself reflecting on his own journey. He remembers the days when he was a wide-eyed teenager dreaming of flying planes, sketching aircraft designs late into the night. Back then, no one questioned his passion or doubted his intentions. Would things have been different if he hadn't fit the mold of what a typical pilot should look like? Probably. And that realization stings. By the time his flight is called, Matthew feels drained but resolute. This isn't the end of the story. It's barely the beginning. He knows there will be consequences, both personal and professional. But more importantly, he understands that change starts within. As he boards the plane, he makes a silent promise to himself to confront his biases, to listen more than he speaks, and to ensure that no child ever feels the way Elijah did today because of him. The fallout from the airport incident doesn't take long to reach Matthew's airline company. By the next morning, news of the confrontation is spread beyond the terminal walls, thanks in part to social media posts and videos shared by onlookers. Headlines like "Pilot calls police on black boy over toy plane" and "FAA administrator confronts pilot over racial bias" begin trending online, sparking nationwide discussions about prejudice in public spaces. For Matthew, the weight of public scrutiny becomes unbearable almost overnight. At work, Matthew is summoned to an emergency meeting with his superiors. The conference room feels suffocating as he sits across from executives who are visibly uncomfortable but determined to address the situation. Matthew, one of them, begins, shuffling papers nervously. "You know how seriously we take these kinds of allegations. This isn't just about you. It reflects on the entire airline." Matthew nods silently, bracing himself for what comes next. He knows the stakes are high. Pilots are expected to uphold not only safety standards, but also the company's reputation. A single misstep can jeopardize careers. And in this case, his mistake has drawn unwanted attention to the airline. Yet, instead of outright termination, they propose a compromise: mandatory sensitivity training, community service hours, and close collaboration with diversity advocates within the industry. It's a chance to redeem himself, but it won't be easy. Word of the disciplinary action leaks quickly, igniting mixed reactions. Some colleagues rally behind Matthew, offering quiet support and reminding him that everyone makes mistakes. "You didn't mean harm," one veteran pilot tells him during a coffee break. "Just learn from it and move forward." Others, however, aren't as forgiving. Flight attendants who overheard his defense at the meeting roll their eyes when he passes by. Social media comments directed at him range from harsh criticism to outright vitriol, with users calling for his permanent dismissal. Meanwhile, Nicole plays an unexpected role in shaping the outcome. When approached by airline executives seeking her input, she surprises them. And Matthew, by advocating against immediate termination. Firing him won't solve anything, she explains during a private phone call. "If we truly want change, we need to focus on education and growth. Let him face the consequences of his actions, yes, but give him the tools to become better." Her stance sparks debate both inside and outside the aviation community. Supporters praise her grace and leadership, applauding her decision to prioritize reform over punishment. Critics, however, accuse her of being too lenient, arguing that Matthew's actions warrant stricter measures. Online forums buzz with opinions, with some dubbing Nicole a hero while others question her judgment. For Matthew, the internal investigation feels like walking through a minefield. During interviews with HR representatives, he's forced to confront uncomfortable truths about his biases and assumptions. At first, he struggles to articulate his thoughts, stumbling over apologies and explanations. But as the sessions progress, he begins to open up, admitting that fear and ignorance drove his decision to report Elijah. "I thought I was protecting people," he admits during one session, his voice heavy with regret. "But now I see I caused harm instead." As part of his rehabilitation plan, Matthew attends workshops led by diversity trainers and participates in panel discussions about racial bias in aviation. These experiences challenge him in ways he never anticipated. Listening to stories from marginalized individuals, many of whom have faced similar incidents, forces him to see the broader impact of his actions. He learns about microaggressions, implicit bias, and systemic inequalities, topics he had previously dismissed as abstract concepts. Slowly but surely, the lessons begin to sink in. By the time the investigation concludes, Matthew is a changed man, or at least he's working hard to be one. While some coworkers remain skeptical of his efforts, others notice subtle shifts in his behavior. He starts engaging more thoughtfully with passengers, taking extra care to ensure no one feels singled out or unwelcome. He even strikes up conversations with children traveling alone, asking them about their hobbies and aspirations. Though small, these gestures signal a step in the right direction. Still, Matthew knows redemption isn't something he can achieve overnight. Every day is a reminder of the trust he broke and the work he must do to rebuild it, not just professionally, but personally. As he prepares for his next assignment, he carries with him a renewed sense of purpose. This isn't just about saving his career anymore. It's about proving to himself and to others that he's capable of change. And deep down, he hopes that someday Elijah and Nicole might believe it too.